Hey there, it's Liam. I'm here because we felt it necessary to drop a little content warning in about today's episode. Today's podcast is all about the video nasties. Because of this, we're talking about a film which was and is incredibly controversial and has some incredibly extreme content. Due to that extreme content, we do discuss sexual violence, abuse and rape in this episode. So if that is something which you do not want to hear about at all, please do not listen to this episode. And we'll see you next week for a much more wholesome film. Thank you, and for everyone else, on with the show.
Please note, for maximum picture quality, it may be necessary to adjust the tracking control on your VCR.
There are some films which changed the world. There were some films that are such massive cultural phenomena that they changed the course of cinema history. There were some films that were so controversial they spearhead huge legislation which leads to prosecutions and fines throughout the entirety of the UK. Oh god, this film. This is Adjust Your Tracking, a podcast where we're on an adventure to watch a century of cinema decade by decade, year by year, and I am one half of your host, Liam Delaney. And opposite me is the dry-handed one that I heard in last week's podcast, Oliver Jones.
Thanks. How you doing? You alright?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah.
Are your hands still dry? You're still suffering from plasticine?
No, they're good now. They're nice and moist. Got clammy hands now. No, I don't have clammy hands.
Oh god, it's got worse.
Hairy palms.
They could market, you know, that kind of Norwegian skincare thing that
Yeah.
I know it because of working outside, and it really, really moistens your hands. They could market that to stop motion animators.
They should do.
Don't get dry hands. Use this.
Is it Dermalex?
Dermalex.
Yeah, they see. I think I got Lacura.
And on that note, joining us today is James Raynor, back again from last week. He survived the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and he's ready to tackle I Spit on Your Grave today.
Is it bad to say that this is more on my wavelength than Sinbad?
How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, uneventful week on this side, but
I was going to say, so nothing's happened since last week then?
No, just a lot of feces and vomit, same as usual.
That's you or your kid?
Oh yeah, she's been around as well. Yeah.
I think that's how James introduced at my stag do. That's how James introduced himself to my friends. It was like, yeah, I shat on my landing once. It's like, hello, I'm James.
I think I waited 5-10 minutes before I brought that up.
You felt comfortable at that point.
But that's my pie story.
Right. Has anyone watched anything this week?
Sorry, I was taking a sip of tea. I've watched loads since, because I wasn't here last time we recorded because I was busy doing archaeology things.
How did it go? Is it all right?
Yeah, actually, it went really well. It's a virtual conference. I was meant to be in Budapest, and I wasn't. I was in my bedroom, which is not the same. And conferences are a lot less fun when you're not just going to a random bar afterwards with people rather than just sitting here getting mad. But I chaired a session which is quite big. That means I had to introduce people and lead discussions and all manner of stuff. But it actually went kind of well. And compared to every other session that I listened to, we didn't have the technical issues that other people did. Because there was a lot of it just, my internet's rubbish, as we know. But there was a lot of other things with other people. They were entirely cutting out and they couldn't work out how to present their stuff and all manner of stuff. And so it's really hard to listen to a session when no one can actually talk.
Yeah.
But our one went really well. So
is this the same, just the 2020 version of what you did in Barcelona last year?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was Bern last year.
Was it
Switzerland?
Yeah,
Barcelona was the year before.
Time's just going too fast.
It is. I know. It's just Zoom, and we're getting older, and time doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 37 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday!
Cheers.
Her birthday was tomorrow.
Yeah, do you like how I just dropped that in there then?
Yeah, I shouldn't have said I forgot. I meant I know.
I never
planned
know
for
anyone's
that.
birthday until it shows up on Facebook saying whose birthday it is today.
Same. Absolutely the same. I absolutely just rely. If you know those mean people that don't put it on Facebook and then they know that you haven't remembered, that's
Or-
like the worst.
Caroline's got a friend who's put the wrong birthday on there so that it weeds out all like the fake people.
That's not on. That etiquette is not. I don't like that. Don't like it at all. I can't remember when people's birthdays are.
So what you watched anyway?
Loads. I watched 8th Grade. It's wonderful. That's my review of that.
Oh, is that the one directed by Olivia? No.
Is it?
Oh no, I'm thinking of the wrong film.
Bo Burnham. The
Bo
stand-up
Burnham.
comedian.
That's it.
There's a really funny scene when she's watching. She'd offered a boy in class a blowjob, so she goes back home and starts googling how to give blowjobs. And she's watching like YouTube videos about how to do it, and then she sneaks into her kitchen to find a banana to practice on. At that point, her dad catches her, and she's like, "Why have you got a banana?" And they point out that she hates bananas. She thinks they're horrible. So now she's really embarrassed and says, "I just fancied a banana," and starts trying to eat it. And clearly see she's hating it, and her dad's like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you trying to eat that banana?" At that point, she kind of like coughs up all this banana and like runs away. And then the next scene is she's typing into YouTube things that are shaped like bananas. And I was like, at that point in that film, I was like, I really enjoy this. This is great.
So I was getting confused with Booksmart, which was by Olivia
Yeah.
Wilde. That's what I was getting confused with. Because that's like
It's also short term something that's a short.
the short term 12, which has got
Yeah.
Brie Larson. That's a good film actually. That's more of a drama though, I think, than like a.
There was one directed by a comedian, wasn't there, recently? Was it like Jonah Hill or somebody?
Yeah, he did one called Mid 90s.
Oh, that was it, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's quite good actually. It's not great, but no, that sounds bad. It's not an amazing film, but it's perfectly watchable and enjoyable. It's very like nostalgia driven, especially if you're into like skate music and stuff like that in the 90s and kind
In
of
90s, yeah.
played a lot of Tony Hawks and thought you were a skater and had an email address called crappy_skater_dude at yahoo.co.uk,
Can't
which I
think
didn't
who we're
have.
talking about right now. Don't know who this is.
So that email address doesn't exist anymore, so you can't spam me.
8th Grade, it's not like a 90s thing. It is happening now, and I just thought it was a really good portrayal of like young kids now. Like it just weaved that kind of way, and it was so relatable. And the actress was so good. Like
I've
really
been meaning to
recommend
watch it. I'm definitely gonna pop that one on.
it. But I also watched, which I thought was worth talking about, was Faces Places, the Agnes Varda documentary.
I saw you watch this.
It's now on Netflix, so you can easily watch it. The reason I bring it up, not to talk about Agnes Varda.
So hang on, she's like the French New Wave kind of filmmaker.
Yeah. You know, like contemporaries with Godard and the rest of them. Like, she's actually Belgium, but obviously she's French New Wave. She's wonderful, and I think she died last year. It was now. If you have never seen any Agnes Varda, that documentary is actually really kind of worth watching because she's an absolute character and she's an absolute joy to watch. And weirdly enough, I put it on one Sunday afternoon when he had a friend around and they were cooking in the kitchen, and I was quite hungover and just lounging, and they decided to put this documentary on, and they all took the piss out of me for putting on some weird French thing on a Sunday afternoon when you're hungover. And I was like, yeah, but it's for me. You don't have to watch it. Like, I'm just gonna. It's not long. Like, and no joke, but at the end of the film, both of them were sitting in there, absolutely transfixed to it, and absolutely loved her. And they just were asking me tons of questions about her and who she is, and asking me tons of questions about her films, and just said, and now like they're like, oh, we love Agnes, she's fantastic, she's my favourite like French director, and that's the only thing I've seen of her for this. But like, she is captivating and she is wonderful, and this film's really, really worth watching. It's really great.
Yeah, no, I just like listening to directors, especially ones who are a bit interesting and a bit unique. Like, so like Hadavarsky and stuff like that are kind of a little bit eccentric. I don't know if she's a bit eccentric, but like,
She's very eccentric. Yeah.
there you go.
But she's very just adorable. She's very humanist. You can see why in like cinema she was someone who people really flock to, because you can see that she cares about people and she knows how to talk to people and she finds things interesting and stuff like that. And there's a reason why, you know, as a female director, she was able to make a name for herself in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. So, or 60s especially, I guess. But it's really cool. Faces Place. It's basically her. She teams up with her mural artists, and they go through France, putting these murals up of the people that they meet.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's really good. Like I can just say really good 100 times.
Nice. So James, what have you watched this week?
I haven't actually watched that much this week. I've ripped a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays to my tablet so I can watch them in bed, and then I've been too tired and just gone to sleep. I did watch Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I had a kind of muted version of what happened with your friends with the documentary. In that my wife said she was going to bed, so I'm like, right, I'll watch Bill and Ted then. And she was like, oh, what are you watching this shit for? And then she stayed through the whole thing and watched it, but then wouldn't admit to enjoying it in any way. She just said, yeah, well, and then she went to bed. But she did stay for the whole thing, so I'm going to assume that she begrudgingly enjoyed it.
There must be a level of enjoyment, surely.
Yeah, you'd have thought. Although I've sat through so many episodes of fucking Police Interceptors and Chicago Fire that it's possible she just hate watched the whole thing as well.
I think me and Lynn were going to talk about Bill and Ted a bit more in depth on like a special episode, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like
I think we'll do all three of them or something.
But like yeah, I watched it as well, and I enjoyed it a lot. Caroline watched it with me. She cried. I got a little choked up. There's one scene in particular that got me, but I'll talk about that when we properly talk about it.
It was just to do like a headline review or whatever. I was so happy that it works.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it just pulls itself together, and those two characters are such a joy. To just watch.
That's the thing. It's just completely free of negativity and cynicism. Yeah. It's just so refreshing at this point in existence.
Yeah, it was. It was just what I needed in this year, I think. Like.
And I think in comparison to say like something like Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and stuff like that, I think it was a much better kind of that version of a film. Like, and I'm sure that came from a good place, but I don't know, this one just felt more like a film as opposed to just like a cameo fest or like just kind of just throwing everything in it.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and there's some good songs on the soundtrack actually. The Mastodon track I quite like as well. Rufus Lives.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's good.
I will listen to that. I noticed they're on soundtrack. I haven't listened to it. I noticed Weezer have a song and it's not good. And
it's okay.
I quite liked the Weezer one.
Maybe I'm just very pessimistic.
It's default Weezer. It's just Weezer on autopilot, basically.
Yeah, I think I've listened to maybe 2 or 3 Weezer songs ever, so it's on par with those.
So it's in your top 3 Weezer songs.
Yeah. I think the only one I can think of, they've got one on the Mallrats soundtrack, haven't they?
Yeah, Suzanne's a good song actually, though.
Oh, is that Weezer? Yeah. So that's 2 songs I can name.
Well, I mean, that's in the period of the first 2 albums, which is peak Weezer, to be honest. I mean, I don't think Weezer have never like gone beyond that really, but
yeah, before it came just a project of River Kumo, before there was this like collaborative element to their songwriting a little bit.
So you preferred it when it was just his voice, really?
Pardon?
You preferred it when Weezer was more just his voice, kind of?
No, Weezer was better when it was more collaborative.
Oh, okay. I thought it went the opposite way around now. I thought it was more...
He fired like the 2 people from the band he used to do a lot of songwriting with him and stuff, and they basically just became a Rivers Kumo solo project, really.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, like, they kept the drummer and the guitarist since the beginning, pretty much. And then the bassist has been with them for like 20-odd years.
I think the guitarist joined in Pinkerton or after Pinkerton. Actually.
No, he's on the cover of
There's 2 people on the cover that aren't in the band anymore of Blue Album. Definitely.
No, on the Blue Album, the only person who's not on the cover is the bassist Mikey Walsh, I think. And welcome to the Weezer podcast.
Of 2 people who don't quite know the facts at all about Weezer.
One who has no idea.
What would the Weezer
Maybe
podcast
we should
be
move
called?
On. Think about Left the World. I've listened to the albums and left them here.
Anyway, so yeah, the only films I've watched are Bill and Ted, and I watched a documentary called Class Action Park.
Oh,
cool. Yeah.
So, I want to see that.
Is it Class Action?
Yeah. Chris Gethard, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, it's about this insane theme park or like water park in New Jersey, America, and it's just like everything's held together with nails and wood and screw, and it's the whole point of people going there was to get a war wound, basically. And in the space of a few years, several people died, but yet the park stayed open for a good 20 years after that, and it's just pretty insane.
Well, they didn't employ any engineers to design the ride. They basically just put shit together and then sent a couple of sandbags down there to see if it worked, and then opened it to the public.
The sandbags didn't explode. It was fine.
So they made this one water slide that does like a 360 loop, and apparently the G-force on it is the equivalent of, like, I don't know, one of these fighter jets. It's meant to be insane. And so they, like James said, they did a few sandbag tests. And then before they opened it to the public, they basically, the owner of the park stood at the one end of the other end of the water slide holding $100 bills, and got the employees, who were all 14-year-old kids, who were like, looking after the whole park. And they were all going down in turn to get $100 at the end. Some came out with missing teeth, some came out all scraped and bruised and stuff like that. And, they'd get $100 at the other end once they'd done the test. And, they had like a water boat place which had snakes in the water.
Man.
Yeah, it's just insane. They had motorized go-karts that could go 60 miles an hour.
There was a film
insane.
A couple of years ago, Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah, I think
they
it was
renamed it Action Point.
Yeah, so not to get a lawsuit. I think it might be like a Jackass Presents movie, maybe.
I don't think it's officially Jackass, although I think
not?
there are a few Jackass people in it. But I don't think it's under the official banner.
It's definitely stunts. I kind of fancy watching that. But that said, I saw the Grandpa one? What was it called?
Bad Grandpa.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I actually like the Jackass films are fun. I actually don't mind those. But when he had a storyline to it,
I haven't seen them in so many years. I don't know.
There's two that stand out to me. One is in the first one where it's like a wide shot of like this tunnel opening on one side of the shot, and I think Johnny Knoxville is standing on the other side of the shot, and suddenly this huge fucking flash flood of water comes out of the tunnel, and all the water subsides, and he's no longer stood there. He's just been swept away.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, and the other one is in the third one, High Five, where they've got this giant hand hiding behind a door, and they keep inviting people in, and then just letting it go so it slaps them in the face. And they send somebody out for soup, and get him to come into the office with it. He's like, why didn't it click when you said soup? Why would I be getting soup?
So there's a podcast, I forgot what it's called now, but it's a guy called Rab himself, who I think was sometimes in Jackass, but he was mostly in the CKY videos.
I was going to say I know him from CKY. That name's really familiar.
And he interviews all the people from, like, he was like apparently like really bad into drugs and alcohol and stuff, but he's turned his life around, and he does a series of podcasts now where he interviews everybody who was part of Jackass and CKY. It's quite interesting. And
the Bathroom Break podcast.
That's it. And if you see Bam Margera now, oh my god, he looks like his dad now. Like he does not look like a world-class skateboarder anymore. Let's put it that way.
I don't think this is the first time you've said this on this podcast.
Probably not.
It's like a little obsession.
Well, no, because I just got Tony Hawk's on the PlayStation 4.
Oh, have you joined into that craze then?
Yeah, reliving my youth as always. I mean, you only have to look around my office, and I'm just constantly reliving my youth.
Crappy skater dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think Bam Margera's on this version. I don't think he came into it until Tony Hawk's 4. But yeah, I was hoping to play as Bam Margera.
Was it that late?
I think so, yeah.
God. I don't remember anything about Tony Hawk's apart from the fact I played tons of it, and now everyone at the moment is telling me how great the remake is because it reminds them of playing loads of it when they were young.
To be fair, it was the game like me, you, and all our friends played during sleepovers, like that and GoldenEye. So it just reminds me of just being a kid and drinking way too much Sunny Delight, and I don't know. Yeah.
Sunny Delight.
You always had Sunny Delight at your house.
Did we? Did we?
Yeah, you had a lot of Sunny Delight. We were all hyper.
Nobody turned orange.
Maybe.
That's my favourite thing about that Sunny Delight thing, that actually people did turn orange from drinking too much of it.
I thought that was like a thing from if you eat too many carrots, you kind of get an orange tint as well.
I think that's actually true, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think the Sunny Delight claim is slightly dubious.
So, what are we talking about today then, Liam? What year are we? We?
Yeah, we're in 1978 actually. Which, God, and you guys, if you think of films from 1978, what stands out for you guys, really?
Oh God, let's have a look. Hang on,
Dawn of the Dead is the first one that comes to my mind.
Of course it does.
Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead's such a good film.
It is.
amazing.
I am eagerly awaiting the new Blu-ray that's coming out in October.
Oh, is there a new set coming out?
Oh yes.
Oh, I've pre-ordered it. It cost me a pretty penny.
Oh, really? What?
Yeah, it was 80 quid for the set.
Ooh.
Yeah, basically it's got all the cuts, so it's kind of got the theatrical cut, the director's cut, and then the Dario Argento cut.
Yeah, it's not actually a director's cut. It's basically a more polished rough cut.
Is it the work print basically?
Yeah, it's more polished than that. He took it to Cannes Film Festival to sell it to distributors. So it's almost there. Basically, all he did was cut a few bits out and swap out some library music for Goblin tracks for the theatrical version.
Oh.
But it's mostly there.
So was Goblin only involved because of Dario Argento then?
Yeah, Dario Argento was the one who basically got it going because I think they just ran into each other in Italy, Argento and Romero, and Argento brought up the idea of a sequel. And Romero had just had a tour of a shopping mall that his friend owned, and that had planted the seed of it, but he hadn't actually done anything about it yet. But that led to Argento putting up a significant amount of the budget, I think. Not all of it, but
was part of that deal that he got to basically get the footage and make it.
Yeah, he was basically in charge of all the non-English territories, so he could put his own cut together for that, which it's shorter than the other two versions, but it has extra bits in it that aren't in the other two versions as well, and it's wall-to-wall Goblin score, which, as much as I love Goblin, it's
a bit
massively overkill. Yeah,
Sure.
I've not seen that version.
Suspiria.
it's you can watch it out of curiosity, but it's far from the definitive version to watch.
I bet. Does it cut out the pie fight? I bet it does.
I think so. Yeah, he focused more on the action than the horror or any of the humor. He cut out all the humor as well.
That's my favourite moment in that film, when it's all out violence and it just cuts to a pie fight. Zombies. The zombies are that useless. They're just throwing foam cream pies in their face.
Yeah, I mean, that was always Romero's thing. It gets to the Night of the Living Dead remake, and they actively pointing it out. They'll look out the window and going, "They're so slow. We can just walk past them," and nobody does.
What else came out? I think
it's worth to say as well, when Dario Argento's cut was released as Zombie in Europe, wasn't it? Not Dawn of the Dead. It was released as a standalone film.
And then what was it? Zombie Flesh Eaters is considered a sequel to that, but
that was released as Zombie 2 in Italy.
It's weird.
It's so odd. But at this time, and we'll get into it more for this whole episode really, but at this time Italian horror is big business. I don't know if it had I don't know much about it, but I just I don't know if there's a special term about it in other territories like spaghetti western or anything like that. But
there's the giallo genre, which has always been pretty big in Italy, but it seems, I think with Dawn of the Dead, it really took off in other outside of the giallo genre, and to do more zombies, more of the extreme stuff like that, supernatural based things.
Well, the spaghetti westerns had in common with the Italian horror films, they're all dubbed as well, so they're all acted in English, most of them, weren't they? And then they were redubbed back into English because they didn't have sync sound and stuff like that. So, which I think may have a reference. Well, I think the film we watched today as well has a lot of ADR and sync sound.
Yeah,
pretty shocking. We'll get to that.
Because of course Dario Argento obviously did Suspiria and Tenebra as well, which are both films that ended up on the nasty list as this topic is all going to be about. Really. Before that, Ollie, what about you? 1978.
For me, the big films, I guess. I mean, you can't not talk about 1978 without talking about Superman. It's the first big budget superhero film, and it has to be like arguably the most famous superhero as well.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I know
so.
Batman. I know Batman had his film in the '60s, but you know, it wasn't like this with like Marlon Brando as his dad, and you know, kind of, you know, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. And
There is a reason that up until pretty much 2008, if you asked everyone what like name some superheroes, they would pretty much say Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
were the three household names, and I think this film is pretty much why.
yeah. I mean, I think we're going to cover it again, like on a special episode. I think so. We'll probably talk about it more there. But yeah, I think
it's worth. Yeah, I think it's worth rewatching. I haven't seen it since I was like, I don't know, a kid.
it's been a while, and I haven't seen Superman 4 ever. So I think I might watch. I might watch all 4.
That's the best one.
But I don't know whether to watch.
3 is so hard to watch.
I don't know whether to watch Superman 2, the normal cut, or the Richard Donner
Or the
version.
Donner cut.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen the Donner cut. I think I've only ever seen the normal cut.
Well, I think apparently the
theatrical cut.
ending for Superman 2 was the ending for Superman 1. And because he was meant to shoot 1 and 2 back to back, and then that kind of got nixed. And then he didn't have an ending for Superman 1 or something, so he took the ending from Superman 2 and put it in Superman 1. I don't know. And then I think in the Donner cut, he reuses that ending again.
Huh.
So
That's really odd. We'll have to do some research.
There's also a TV cut of Superman 1 that's over 3 hours long as well. So
3 hours.
well, I think
Isn't
in
that
America,
one of the Blu-rays?
yeah, it recently came out. I think in America they used to do like instead of like cutting a film down to fit a time slot, they'd have it running over several nights. So they might have an hour each night or an hour and a half each night and have it split over several nights.
That's bad.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, they would also like cut things out for censorship purposes, and then if it would ended up being a lot, they would put deleted scenes back in. So you get this weird amalgam version.
I remember they did when I first went to America. First film on when I got there on TV was Ace Ventura, and like I know Ace Ventura like the back of my hand, and there was so many scenes that were cut, but then so many scenes they added in that I was like, what's this? What's going on here? But
Yeah, it's weird. None of it happens over here. We don't even get the TV cuts. It always ends up just being a censored version of the theatrical version.
Yeah.
Like
You get weird stuff in plane cuts as well. They do the same thing and shove scenes back into it. Well, at least they used to. I don't know if it's still a common thing.
I don't think it is as common because everyone's got personal screens now, don't they?
Yeah, sure.
didn't you tell me, Liam, that you saw one of the X-Men films and they completely cut out like one of the big ending bits because it was a plane crash or something?
It's First Class, I think. Yeah, I think it was First Class, and the whole last scene is a big airplane crash with Magneto pulling it to the stadium or something. I don't know. I might be making all that up. But yeah,
there was. At some point there was a big controversy of a flight screening Die Hard 2, and people complained about it.
I'm trying to think now, but I can't remember. But yeah, I'm pretty much sure like the basically just cut out most of the end of the film because you don't want to see planes crashing when you're in a plane, or at least that's not the most sensible thing to do anyway.
I guess another film that was big was Animal House came out, so that kind of started that whole wave of like the Saturday Night Live kind of crew, I guess.
Saturday Night Live films, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it was a National Lampoon, but like, but it kind of launched the careers of like John Belushi and then like later on, Dan Aykroyd and all that kind of crew and stuff.
I watched the National Lampoon documentary the other week.
Oh, cool.
I didn't know
Drunk,
there was one.
Stoned. Yeah, it's on Sky. Drunk, Stoned, Brilliant, Dead. And it's about the starting of the magazine and its success and branching off into different medias like live shows and TV and radio and all that stuff, and then eventually to the movies. And yeah, it seems like Animal House. They're just a bunch of frat boys in an office doing shit to amuse themselves.
Like apparently, reading the book I was reading, Wild and Crazy Guys, which I've talked about a million times on this podcast, but apparently like Ivan Reitman wanted to direct that film, but wasn't allowed to, and I'm not quite sure why he wasn't allowed to direct it. I don't know if it was because he wasn't a name or a known commodity at that point, but he was a producer on the film.
Yeah,
I don't know who directed Animal House.
I feel,
It's
John Landis.
John Landis, yeah.
I feel like it was discussed, but I can't remember what the outcome was from it.
So that's why you end up doing Meatballs, I think, because it was like a kind of a similar kind of thing, really. But yeah.
It's weird. I haven't seen Animal House for years. I just watched it. I've seen it once, and I have no real memory of it. I know, like, it's one of these, especially from like American people of an age. It's one of these huge like comedy films that everyone can quote and everything like that. But it never really made any impact on me at all.
I think for me, the disconnect was they were supposed to be like straight out of high school kids, and they looked like they were nearly 30.
Sure.
Like John Belushi has never looked young. I think he's always looked about 35. And so, yeah.
And one of the kids is the cop in The Mask who's trying to arrest Jim Carrey.
I never put that together. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So I just keep seeing that all the way through whenever I'm watching it. I've only watched it a couple of times, so I just keep thinking that's the cop from The Mask. He's 45 years old.
Is that the one who's dating Karen Allen, the one from Raiders?
I can't remember. All I remember about Karen Allen in it is that she's banging Donald Sutherland.
Isn't he like the dean in it or something? Or
He's the cool hippie teacher.
That's it. Yeah. That's
it. Bears his ass at one point, doing his like butt walking in the moonlight shot.
God, I do not remember Animal House. Listening to you guys talk.
Yeah, those are the only two bits I remember. I did watch a bit of it on TV the other day. Although to be honest, most of my Animal House knowledge comes from the episode of Futurama that spoofed it.
Sure, I think any Simpsons or Futurama. That's where I know most of my Animal House references from. Yeah, absolutely. That was like me with what was the film we did? Like we didn't do it, but MASH. That's the one that MASH through references.
I tell you what film fucked me up the most though from this year, and that was Watership Down. Like, my dad
never finished it.
Have you never finished it? Don't watch Plague Dogs either. So it's that Plague Dogs is by the same like filmmaking team, and it's also by the same writer of the same book as Watership Down. But my dad got me to watch Watership Down when I was probably way too young, and I'm like, how is this like a kids' film? But it is really good though. Like I'm not going to say it's not good. It is. Watership Down is great, but
Watership Down to me, I for years would say to people, it's the bit when they start turning into zombies and eating each other that I couldn't watch. And people are like, what film did you watch that's not Watership Down?
It's proper 70s. It's proper trippy. It's got the most depressing theme song ever. Bright eyes burning like fire.
That is a bang on Garfunkel.
But it does have, like in a kids' film, like I think there's like a French seagull in it, and he says shit in it or something like that. So
no, he says piss off.
That's it, piss off.
Yeah, piss off. I remember it got brought into school for like one of the end of term like video viewings, and I think it got turned off at that point. I was always this kind of ties into the episode, but I was always disputing censorship decisions with teachers and authority figures. Like I was turned it off at that point. I was like, but it's a U certificate. We can watch it. It's fine. And then I remember arguing with a grandparent about watching Little Shop of Horrors, and they wouldn't let me watch it because it was on at like 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, but it's a PG. And no, they wouldn't let me.
And it still upsets you to this day.
I wouldn't carry a grudge, but like Grandma can fuck off.
Did any of you watch the Bashki Lords of the Rings that came out this year?
I have seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it very chemical induced states, which I don't advise.
But like like Bashki's insane, so like you're not going to get like
insane,
a normal film made by that guy. So like you give him the reins to Lord of the Rings, and it makes something a bit weird. And like not surprisingly, he didn't get the money to do the follow up. So the film ends with them just going, and they rode off into the sunset, and everything ended happily ever after. You're like, what? Well, hang on, what?
The weird bits in that is when you get the acting, like.
Yeah, because they've run out of money and budget, so they just because he rotoscoped.
They just
He used the footage from the rotoscopes and just treated it with some sort of shitty effects.
Yeah, that's when you can tell when they're really down to the line. It's like, look, we've got a release date. We need to get this out there. Just dip it in some dye and we'll call it a day.
Just shadow it a little bit.
The score for it is really good. I think I prefer the score to the animated version than I do the Peter Jackson version.
The Howard Shore ones.
Yeah, Leonard Rosenman scored the animated one. I've heard a few Rosenman scores. He did RoboCop 2 as well.
Ah.
And Star Trek 4, and they all sound the same. He did a couple of Planet of the Apes as well, and they sound the same. He's basically got one trick, but apparently that trick was very popular in the 60s and 70s. At least Alphen's got two modes. He's got his big, bombastic Tim Burton mode, and he's got his twangy, experimental guitar synthy mode.
Sure.
Whereas Rosenman was just the same, like, action rhythm, and then that's it.
He did the score for The Jazz Singer in 1981. That's really odd.
Do you know what? This is actually a really good year. You've also got Halloween.
That's what I want to mention. Yeah, talking horror films. I mean, like Halloween came out in January, I think, this year, which is a very odd time for Halloween to come out. Which I don't understand that release date at all. But yeah, that's just a wonderful film. Just one of the best horror films ever made, really.
Yeah, but they've milked it so badly, like to the point where I just don't give a shit. It says the release. It says, hang on. It says the release date was October 25th, 1978. So maybe it was.
I don't know what I've read.
I have not seen the new one. No, is it good?
I really actually quite liked it. Actually,
yeah, I didn't mind it. I'm not really a slasher guy. I do own the Halloweens, but that's mainly for the music more than anything.
Sure, the music's amazing. Yeah.
I think the best Halloween is Halloween 3.
Oh, I love Halloween 3.
Yeah.
I'm such a fan of Halloween 3, yeah.
So
I do like that one.
I own the first one because it's John Carpenter, and I have to own everything he's done. But I very rarely watch the first one, but I'll watch Halloween 3 all the time, whenever I stumble across it on Sci-Fi Channel or something.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like one of those odd little, like, kind of
Well, wasn't that the original... Wasn't that the original plan, that all the Halloween films were going to be like a different...
Yeah, it was going to be like an anthology series set around
which would have been more interesting, I think.
Yeah, they just fucked it up by doing Halloween 2.
And then they did Halloween 2, yeah. If they didn't follow it with Halloween 2 immediately, then I think they could have kept on doing it. But and then because they did that, Halloween 3 came out, and people were like, "What? Like this doesn't make sense. This isn't how films work. You can't just put a random film in our series." And then really, since then, I don't think that I can barely name the other Halloween films or what happens in them or anything like that. Up until basically like H2O and then the recent remake. Like,
there's one with Busta Rhymes, and he's like a TV executive, like in a Big Brother type house or something like that.
Yeah, that was the worst one.
That's...
Trick or treat, motherfucker!
I think that's the one after Halloween H2O, isn't it? I think.
So H2O had a really nice ending where it seems like Laurie Strode has conquered Michael Myers and finally killed him, and then they just retcon the fuck out of it in the first 10 minutes of
what is that one called?
Halloween Resurrection, and then
that's it. Yes.
And then kill her off. So it's that's a travesty, and then the rest of the film just exists, which is also the bigger travesty.
Yeah.
Oh, so the new one is not set after those films. It's set.
It's after. It's after the first one.
Or was it just
no,
the
it's
first
not even.
one?
It's not even acknowledging the second one.
Ah.
Was Jamie Lee
so
Curtis in
weird.
the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter wrote it, and he basically ran out of ideas, so he just kind of bullshitted his way through it. Decided, fuck it, let's make them brother and sister. And then they've stuck with that through the rest of the franchise, but they've decided to retcon that. Which
okay.
I don't know. I'm not too fussed about that. But I preferred the H2O Laurie Strode to the new Halloween Laurie Strode.
Sure. Because
the H2O version, she was traumatized, but she kind of put her life back together. She had a kind of PTSD. PTSD type
Yeah.
situation going on. I don't know what's happening here. I'm just choking on my own tongue. So she was kind of battling alcoholism as well, and then she has to rise to the challenge when Michael returns. Whereas this one, she starts as Sarah Connor at the beginning of the film and ends as Sarah Connor. There's no real arc to it.
No, there isn't much arc, and it's just that cathartic release of getting revenge, isn't it? That's the point of the new one, which a lot like today's film. But I enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it, and I actually did enjoy the new Halloween.
Oh, the stupid twist in the middle of it, though.
What is that?
With the Dr. Loomis character.
Oh yeah, God, yeah. No need, yeah.
Is Dr. Loomis played by different people in each film? I guess he is.
No, Donald Pleasance was there up until he died. His last film was Halloween 6. But yeah, they've got a new colleague of Dr. Loomis in this one.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it takes a weird turn in the middle with his character, which they almost immediately abandon.
They do.
Just the fact that it's there is just annoying enough.
But going back to how good this year was, I mean, you had, so you had Days of Heaven, the Terrence Malick film. You had your Drunken Master, the Five Deadly Venoms. You had the Martin Scorsese kind of not documentary but live show of the band The Last Waltz, which I really like because it's got Van Morrison's Caravan on it, which is amazing. And you've got Deer Hunter, Jaws 2. But I want to ask you guys your thoughts on Grease.
I don't like Grease.
Do you not like Grease?
All. No, I don't like the mute songs, and I don't like the film. I just don't like it. I don't like the film.
It's so bizarre, but I can't. It's so ingrained into my head because my sister. It was one of the only tapes we had on Betamax, and so it was just on all the time. So it's just. I can close my eyes and just play out Grease in my head. It's just ingrained.
Oh, it's ingrained. I've seen it 40,000 times. But that might be half the reason I don't like it, though. It might just be too much.
I've seen the film a couple of times, but I shot the live performance that our school did in sixth form by the drama department. And then I shot it over 3 nights, and then I tried to edit the 3 angles together.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was an absolute clusterfuck. I was doing it in iMovie as well.
Oh.
So this is iMovie of 2002, not even modern day iMovie. So that's the Grease that's stuck in my mind more so than the movie.
Yeah, because the play version is different, isn't it? So Grease Lightning's not sung by Danny; it's sung by one of his friends, Kaneki, I think. And
the car is Kaneki's, I believe. So it's weird that John Travolta's singing it in the movie. He's singing an ode to his mate's car.
I don't think they're called the T-Birds either. I think they're called something different, maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
I don't remember.
Moving on.
It's got a weird message anyway, and I never quite get it.
Yeah,
Every time I watch the film, I'm like, I don't understand.
It's so weird. It's they seem content with each other at one point, then they're a couple, but then she all of a sudden decides, no, I'm going to wear tight trousers and a leather jacket now and smoke cigarettes because reasons. I don't know, it's weird.
It's so odd. Yeah, I never get it. I'm sure people have explained it to me 100 times what it actually means or something, but to me it's just you have to change yourself to be with a man who doesn't like you as yourself or something.
But I swear at some point he accepts, he's happy with her as she is, and
they had a nice summer together. That's what I'm going to talk about. I never get that film. I'm always confused by it. You know what film we should have done this for this year?
What's that?
Every Which Way But Loose.
Oh.
Why aren't we doing that? A nice film about a monkey. Couldn't it?
Have either of you guys seen Capricorn 1?
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't actually.
That is a fucking tremendous motion picture. Written and directed, I think, by Peter Hyams, who's a real kind of journeyman director. He's done a lot of solid work through the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Did he do Universal Soldier?
No, that was Roland Emmerich, but his son directed the highly acclaimed straight-to-video sequels.
Hey, my friend's in that film.
Yeah, I know. Day of Reckoning and First and Savage, yeah. I don't remember what. I don't remember what the other one's
Fish,
called. But yeah, his son's got in on the act now. But yeah, Capricorn 1 is a fucking awesome film.
Oh, I have to
Who
check
did
that one
Time
out.
Cop?
Yeah, Time Cop. He did that.
Awesome.
Sudden Death as well, which I thought was an underrated film. Which is
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
Die
I
Hard in
agree.
a hockey rink.
Yeah, I like Sudden Death. It's
I
one of
didn't
the
know Ronald
Jean-Claude Van
Emmerich-
Damme films I could think of.
I didn't know Ronald Emmerich did the first Universal Soldier.
Yeah.
I always thought his first American film was Stargate.
Well, it
He
wasn't.
did, I'm sure he did
'Cause he
something
did-
else of note.
Because he
as
did
well
like a
before
German
that.
film with American actors in it, and apparently it's meant to be very Spielbergian, but I've forgotten what that was called.
I'm just looking it up now.
I don't know. Roland Emmerich is not the greatest person.
Is he not a good person? I don't know.
No.
Moon 44, that's the one I was thinking of. That's like a Abyss / Alien / The Thing type movie, I think.
Huh.
Nope, it's not. I just assumed it was from the poster art that I saw, but reading the synopsis on Wikipedia, it's nothing like that. But I knew that was an early Roland Emmerich film.
Okay. So anyway, Liam,
Yeah.
what are we talking about today?
Oh, we're moving on. Okay.
Do you want to carry on?
I didn't know if James had anything else to say about Capricorn 1.
Oh, just the plot is the first manned mission to Mars, and it's a big deal in American culture. They're about to launch, and the 3 astronauts are taken into a side room. And they said there's a problem with the mission. We can't send you, but we're going to send the rocket off and fake it. So we can't, let the American public down. We can't let them lose faith in our system of government. And they fake the whole thing on a soundstage. And then when the rocket is returning to Earth, it blows up in the atmosphere.
Oh,
So now they've got these 3 loose ends on Earth. And whilst the government's deciding what to do with them, they escape into the desert. And the government is hunting them to track them down.
okay.
It's
sounds awesome.
it's very good.
I need to
Yeah,
watch it.
got O.J.
Again.
Simpson in it.
Hey,
We could have done that. Yeah, Elliot Gould's in it as well, I noticed.
Oh, Elliot
I
Gould's really
absolutely
good.
love 70s Elliot
Yeah.
Gould. So.
There's some good 70s chat-up lines between him and Karen Black, I think it is. Some nice 70s banter.
Great. That's like when I was watching MASH and I was like, was this okay? Was this normal?
so
Telly
uh,
Savalas as well. Sorry, go on.
so I was going to say, so Liam, what are we talking about today then?
So yeah, we're talking about the 1978 horror film I Spit on Your Grave. You can drop that trailer. The trailer's quite good actually.
I spit on your grave.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Take off your clothes. I don't like women giving me orders.
I spit on your grave. What you are about to see did happen. I spit on your grave. This woman will soon cut, chop, break, and burn 5 men beyond recognition. And there isn't a jury in this country that will convict her.
I'll give you something to remember for the rest of your life.
AKA The Night of the Woman or something. What's it
Day
called?
of the Woman isn't Day of the
Day
Woman.
of the Woman, yeah, which the director is very obsessed with still putting on everything, including the weird sequel that he did like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, that's coming out in October. That's gonna be interesting.
I
think.
thought it was
It's-
already out. Deja
It's
Vu
out.
or something.
Yeah, it's out in America, but it's getting a UK release.
Wow, it's definitely on the torrent sites, which I haven't visited ever. In my life, ever.
No, they're doing a big box set that's coming out in October in the UK.
Well, I
but,
won't be
like,
rushing to
3
buy that.
3 of the 5 films that are in it are cut, so I don't know who this is meant to appeal to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
if you're gonna
it's
watch
worth
this
saying
film,
that this had so many sequels. Like it's incredible that it not only has got its own sequel that just came out a couple of years ago, but it spawned a remake that also got 2 sequels to it.
But the
so
remake
weird.
flopped, so it cost $2 million to make the remake, and it made like not even a quarter of that. So how they managed to make
theatrically, but you know, it made a killing on video and
I
demand and
suppose.
all that kind of stuff. They were probably in profit before they shot it.
Yeah, I guess
that's
so.
why we wanted to talk about this. Really, it's like because it's all about the video releases. That's why this is a special film. So
Special.
kind of. Well, it's why it's a notable film. It's why people know the name of this. It's why it gets remakes. It's why it gets it's made loads of money over the year. It's all to do with that video release, which was a new thing in 1978.
Yeah, because I was reading some quotes from the director saying that it didn't make much. It kind of flopped at the cinema, didn't it? But
It did, yeah. I didn't even get a wide release. It kind of just got showed on like drive-throughs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was listening to the commentary before we did this, and he couldn't get anybody to buy the film, so he tried to self-release it on about 10 screens, and he barely made back what he spent on the posters for it. So at that point, he kind of pulled it and tried to regroup and replan what he was going to do about the release.
Did you know on the poster it's not the actress from the film? Apparently, it's Demi Moore.
I just found this out.
So she would have been about 16 at the time of that. Oh, it says from 1980 release, so maybe she was a little bit older. So maybe she was about 18, 19. But
I think she would have had to been. I'd hope.
Yeah, we hope. Can but hope.
But yeah, the whole re-release thing is why it's called I Spit in Your Grave, because it got sold to a distribution company, the Jerry Gross company, and they retitled it and re-released it as I Spit on Your Grave. So the director is so obsessed with the original name, and that's why it still keeps appearing, because it wasn't his choice to rename it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, apparently it was such a big hit on VHS that apparently it worked out that everybody who had a VHS player in the UK, there was one sold for every VHS that was available, player that was available.
Christ, it's incredible.
Well, my grandparents had a VCR, and they had a membership to a video shop, and they were paying a fee every month for it, and they're like, we're going to get our money's worth for this. So they rented all the video nasties. So my nana has seen I Spit on Your Grave and Evil Dead and Faces of Death, because they were the only tapes available, and they were going to get their money's worth out of that membership.
Well, it's worth saying, because when VHSs got launched, which I don't know was around 1977, I think, around that, the studios didn't actually support them. They didn't think, they thought it would really harm cinema, and it was a bad way to show films. And what that left was basically this huge, just void that people could fill. And it got filled with these kind of independent films, these small horror films, and they got pushed out to a rate that they were getting absorbed through videotapes much quicker than any other releases. And then and because they were so it was a new technology, the ratings laws that existed didn't exist for videotapes, that only existed for films. So it's kind of complicated, but we'll definitely get into it because I think it's really fascinating. But the MPAA in America, they copyrighted their releases, their rankings, but the X ranking wasn't copyrighted. So loads of VHSs you see as released with the X ranking, which made them seem pornographic and weird and horrible, which made them appeal to people more. And this was what happened with this film massively. More than important, when it got its theatre released, it actually got 17 minutes cut out of it for its theatre release in America, and that got it an R rating. When they released it on VHS, they put in those 17 minutes back into the VHS, but released it with an R rating still on the tape. And that everyone knew this, and that's why it had notoriety, and people ran out to buy it. But that ended up in a court case in 1983 for them pushing out this R rating in a film that hadn't got the R rating, because it had that 17 minutes put back into it, to gain it that X rating. But when this was released, it was pretty much one of the first films to ever find monetary success through VHSs. On the box office, it made no money, but in VHS, it was number 24 on the Billboard charts for most of 1981. I think it stayed in the top 40 for, I think it was something ridiculous, 20 weeks or something like that.
So it was a lingerer, it just lingered around, just kind of...
It outsold things like Godfather 2 and big Hollywood movies.
Best-selling video cassette of that year, this was. And the studio, I think it's Studio Canal this country, but I can't remember if it was the same in America. No, it wasn't Studio Canal. Whatever. They re-released it 6 times because they couldn't meet demand. And it's just it's hard to undervalue how big this film was in that time, really.
It's the same with Evil Dead as well. They did a simultaneous theatrical and video release, and that was the #1 video for 1983 in the UK at least, outselling E.T., which is.
Do you think with Evil Dead they put that tree rape scene in because of films like I Spit on Your Grave to kind of capitalise on that?
Yeah, because those guys weren't really horror guys. They
exactly.
decided to make a horror because it was
for
profitable.
business.
So,
for business reasons, wasn't it?
So they just basically went around drive-ins and watching all these types of films. So it's probably something they thought, okay, we need to have this because they all seem very naive and innocent about this kind of thing. Sure. So they thought, okay, so we need to put a rape scene in this film, without thinking, actually, no, we don't.
Yeah,
no, we don't. It doesn't really require it.
Because do they chat in Evil Dead 2? It's not necessarily a rape scene, is it? It's just like
no. And that is, Sam Raimi says that's the one thing he regrets about the first film.
Right.
Oh, and apparently having Rob Tapert visible in the background, so they digitally removed him later.
Hey, I did not know that.
Yeah, they're going across the bridge, and it's meant to be this isolated cabin in the middle of nowhere, and then there's just Rob Tapper standing off to the side with a clipboard, watching them go across the bridge.
Why did Sam Raimi have to go to court over the video nasty stuff?
He was, speaking on behalf of his intentions and what he was thinking. He was basically Sam Raimi is such an affable little dude. There's no way he could think like this is a sadist who's only out to encourage murder and destruction and rape. So we'll bring him up to the stand and we'll say, look, it might not be your kind of art, but it's art of some degree. And then the court was just like, no, we don't need to hear from you.
Okay, so he came all the way for nothing.
Yeah.
It's worth saying because when you go through the video nasties list, there are films on that you've seen, that are now common releases. There are films on that no one's, apart from if you're seeking them out, if seen.
And it's the Streisand effect. Half of these films
would
be completely forgotten if they hadn't kicked up such a fuss at the time. Like Night of the Demon.
Sure.
It's there's the famous 50s version, which is a horror classic, and then there's the video nasty about a killer Bigfoot who rips a guy's cock off. Nobody would be talking about that unless it was on this list of the essential 72 films that you must see if you're a horror fan.
Buy, you must see. Yeah, that's what it became. Absolutely, it's worth still getting the history of it if people don't know, because obviously this is an English thing, but in America, basically, the reason they didn't have the same sort of issue that went through, but what they did have was Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert hated this film with an absolute passion, and because of his ferocity and how much he hated it, he sold it to the world. Even to this day,
there's no press
sequel,
what is it? There's no such thing as bad press.
There isn't, and you had to see it because look how much Roger Ebert hated this. Even that sequel we were talking about, Deja Vu, their website links to a review of Roger Ebert's original review of the original film. They're still look, this guy, this is the film.
The beginning of the director's commentary on the DVD. The first 5 minutes of it is him reading out reviews, both good and bad, shitting on him, saying what a fucking freak he is and what his intentions are, and he brings up Ebert a bunch of times on the commentary, and at the end he says we did invite Roger Ebert to provide his own commentary on the film, and he turned us down. That would have been amazing to listen to.
That would have been amazing.
James, isn't it? It's worth you talking about your dad and his history with these video nasties.
My dad had a video shop in the early 80s, and he had a lot of these titles.
What was it called, his shop?
Whitkirk Video, I think it was. He's in a documentary that came out a few years ago called Video Nasties: The Definitive Guide. Yeah. It's actually stock footage. He was interviewed for a Channel 4 thing at the time in 83, and it's stock footage from that. But it shows you him getting into his van and doing house deliveries of videos.
Here's your copy of I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, he was the Deliveroo of Video Nasties. So yeah, he told me like the full story just a couple of months ago. So like he knew he was dealing video nasties, and as any normal person would think, they're just films. Like who gives a fuck? So he was just very careful about who he rented them to. And like he wouldn't rent them to new customers. He'd always wait a while, see what they're like, and if they ask for
vet them.
decide whether he's going to give them it or not. And one day he was off doing something else, and he had an assistant who was working the till, and some new guy came in, opened an account, tried to rent some video nasties, and he gave them to him, and he turned out to be an undercover cop.
Oh,
No way.
So that's what led to the raid. And then in the middle of the raid, while it was happening,
so they actually raided your dad's shop.
Yeah, he did the full thing.
That was the law, yeah.
So the cops are in there raiding, going through his stuff, taking his videos, and this other customer comes to the front door with a handful of video nasties. He's another cop, but he's a customer who's just rented them for shits and giggles. He sees what's going on and just turns and walks away like Grandpa going into the back house, the Maison Derriere.
With his hat.
Yeah.
Faces of Death? No.
So yeah, he was the first person in the UK to be prosecuted.
That's nuts.
Video
So
nasties.
that's Stephen Taylor.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wrote down Stephen Taylor here on my list.
He got a £600 fine, or £650 fine. Basically a slap on the wrist, because like a bunch of people like went to jail after that. That's the big quote that's in the documentary. Is he's lucky he's the first guy, because the next guy could go to jail, and eventually someone did.
Well, it's a good job they didn't do an example of your dad, like he was the first one. So like we're gonna get hard on this guy, and then
it was all new. Like people didn't know what to do. Like films were getting found guilty of obscenity in one court, but then they'll be found not guilty in another court. So they were basically just running around, flinging shit around, seeing what sticks.
I mean, yeah, like when 1982 is when the Obscene Publication Squad, I think they were called. There was also another one called Parliamentary Obscene for something. They went to the Director of Public Prosecutions, and they gave him 3 films: I Spit on Your Grave, SS Experiment Love Camp, and Driller Killer.
That's so boring. Driller Killer is.
Well, that's the kind of thing about most of these films.
Yeah.
But like, they asked them to prosecute these 3 films under the 1959 Act of for obscene material, and he agreed, but also added 2 films to it, which were Death Trap and Cannibal Holocaust. And that point in 1982, it became illegal to own these as to own them, and definitely not to distribute them. After that ruling, there ended up being a list of 74 films which were illegal under the law, and they would modify them monthly. That list existed up until 1984, when the BBFC was finally given power to actually classify VHSs, and basically overnight they had to classify like 1,000 VHSs that had never been looked at before, like including everything basically, like.
Was Straw Dogs one of those then, potentially?
It wasn't on the 74 list, but it was.
Yeah,
banned.
it was. Yeah, well,
or at least
they
they
basically didn't want to release it. They were asking for cuts, and they decided to just not bother.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was like there's the 74 films. Half of them were fully prosecuted and found guilty, and then the other half were found not guilty or not prosecuted. And I think Straw Dogs was on the latter list. I don't think it was an official prosecuted nasty.
No.
Okay.
There were 39 films that were prosecutable. And for example, I've got a list of some that you might recognise the name of. Bay of Blood, Last House on the Left, the Beast in Heat, Faces of Death, I Spit on Your Grave, The Toolbox Murders, Tenebrae, Driller Killer, and Cannibal Holocaust. Like that, for an example, most of those films you won't have heard of those 39 films, I think. But they were prosecuted in court. People were fined for them. Owning them was illegal. Giving them out were illegal. Copying them, everything like that. They were obscene items. They were classified as obscenity. There were 33 films on the list, which were non-prosecutable, as in they went through court and they didn't get prosecuted. And one of those were Evil Dead. like Hell of the Living Dead and stuff like that. So there were films on this list that didn't lead to prosecutions. And then there were a ton of the rest of the films were called the video nasties, and these were films that they weren't going to prosecute you for owning, but they would seize them. So on that list was stuff like Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Night of the
Hills
Living
of
Dead
Ice.
was on there.
Yeah. Suspiria, Rabid, Dawn of the Dead, Phantasm, Prom Night, Friday the 13th,
Shit.
Scanners. So they wouldn't prosecute for that, but they would seize you for having them.
That's insane.
And then there was other category of stuff that they were kind of banned, but not really. But that stuff like Basket Case and City of the Living Dead and stuff like that were on those lists. And this was, this is the way UK like censorship law existed for the early part of the 80s.
Yeah, I started collecting horror right at the tail end of it, where trying to get an uncut horror film was a pain in the ass.
Sure.
Like Evil Dead still had 2.5 minutes missing out of it when I started getting into horror stuff.
Even Friday the 13th wasn't released uncensored until 2003 in the UK. And it's like that with loads of those films that you've seen and you know really well.
Well, I have a feeling even like Reservoir Dogs took a long time to come out on VHS because of reasons like that, I think.
There was something in the news at the time which meant that it might have been a bit early for Jamie Bulger, but there was a big thing about video violence in the early 90s again. It keeps coming around.
It was
when the
Charles
tabloids
Bay
need
3,
something.
wasn't it, with Jamie Bulger? That was they got
which I think was 93 or 94 when that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tabloids sometimes need a scapegoat, or they need a crusade, and the video nasties thing will come back around. They tried it again a few years ago when Cannibal Holocaust came out on DVD, and they were like, they're selling it in Tesco's next to your chips and your newspapers, and nobody gave a fuck anymore.
I think video games and social media have taken over that now.
Yeah.
Really.
But yeah, like after that act, they raided the company Astra Video. They distributed I Spit in Your Grave, and they destroyed everything in their offices. They destroyed like all the covers, posters, the master copies, the promotional material, and they seized, I think it was over 300, something about 300 or something copies of the film and stuff. And it was all because, as James was saying, it was people like Mary Whitehouse, who like, and the Daily Mail, who pushed out these kind of campaigns of these films will ruin people, and especially kids. It was mainly think of the kids,
The thing that I think is considered to have started the whole thing was the distributor of Cannibal Holocaust sent a copy to Mary Whitehouse because they knew she'd kick up a stink about it, and they were just expecting some free publicity from it.
Sure.
And instead they brought about like the downfall of unregulated video in the UK.
Yeah. And it's like.
Did she help bring along about the watershed and stuff like that as well? And
probably. She's been going since like the 50s or 60s.
I think she was involved in like LGBTQ laws and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, she's a
what
right
a bitch.
fucking nut. I've got a book called Ban This Filth, which is like all the correspondence that she wrote to various organisations complaining about stuff. I haven't read it yet, but it's sat on my shelf just calling to me occasionally, and I never quite get there. I've got fucking loads of books to read now at this point. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that, because I've seen a few like debates she was involved in, and she's one of these real sticklers, like, I don't need to have seen it to know what's in it types that just fucking infuriate me.
I think it's one of the enduring things about this film, and as I said before we start recording, I don't think I can go through this film beat by beat at all. But like,
well, I think what you've just talked about is way more interesting than this film. Like,
that's
first
the
of
point,
all,
I think.
this film is fucking boring. That's the biggest sin of this film, I think. But yeah.
But like, I think it's really interesting to say that the Daily Mail, like, they would say about these films stuff that wasn't in them, and especially this film, to defend it. Like, it doesn't sexualize rape in the same way as I think Straw Dogs does.
Yeah, well, because she kind of gets into it in Straw Dogs, doesn't she?
Yeah, and this film doesn't do that. This film makes it very clear that this is a horrible act.
Yeah.
And it isn't even like shot in that way. It's shot a lot from her point of view, which makes it even, again, horrible. Like, And a lot of the Daily Mail articles at the time were saying about how these films would depict sadism and show victims enjoying their assault, and that was the outrage. And they would also say stuff. I think even Roger Ebert said that, like, I can never say his surname.
Ebert.
Ebert. Well, like, an hour of rape this film has. It isn't. It's 25 minutes. It's still
even
more than I need.
Well, she's raped. She runs away. Then they find her. Somehow they're ahead of her.
Yeah.
Then they rape her again against a rock, which that was disgusting.
That scene is one of the worst.
Then she gets home, tries to call the police, and is raped again.
I think that scene has one of the best jump scares I've ever had.
That was good.
Shit my pants.
Yeah.
When that happened.
Well, I was listening to it with headphones on. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I was watching it at like 1 a.m. by myself, and I turned off all the lights, and that's the thing. Like, there's no score in the film.
Yeah,
there isn't. So there's only 2 bits of music in the whole film.
And that's all like within the scene, isn't it? So,
yeah. So it's like
church organ playing.
Diegetic or non-diegetic?
Yeah, I think it's diegetic. She visits a church and there's an organist playing, and then there's a bit. Oh, actually, there's 3 pieces. There's a bit of music in the shop when they're at the supermarket. Some music playing, and then she puts on some classical music after one of her vengeance-based escapades to drown out the screaming.
I would say, as you brought up that scene, I think that should have been the last shot of the film.
I agree. I thought they fucked up by having that not be the absolute finale.
Which scene was that?
That's the
Which
big
shot's
thing.
that?
So after she castrates him, puts on some music.
That's the perfect place
there
to put the credits.
Yeah, because put your credits at that point. Yeah,
I thought he would have been the last one to kill as well, because he's like the final boss. He was the first,
and it wouldn't have taken much editing to shove the last 2 deaths before.
Oh yeah, nothing. Yeah,
they were kind of underwhelming. They weren't nearly as like, there wasn't the slow build or the suspense to those kills as there was to.
So, just to quickly summarise the plot, she's a young girl from New York who's come to this quaint, smaller kind of southern.
Yeah, you get all that rural.
It's basically redneck country.
Yeah, and it's properly like what you call it. The film's gone out of my head.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay,
and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, totally. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Oh. Continue, Ollie.
I was going to say, so you're introduced to the main character who's played by, is it Camille Keaton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who I
Buster
think she
Keaton's
eventually...
granddaughter.
Is whose?
Buster Keaton's granddaughter.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally.
And she married the director Meir... What's his name? Meir
Zarchi.
Zarchi, yeah. So she married him. And she's apparently in the Legacy sequel that's coming out, Deja Vu.
I have to say, I think she's great in this.
I mean, she's a trooper,
really
that's for sure.
Yeah.
She spends half the film naked. The only other film that I know where the character's naked the whole way through is Life Force.
That's a very different film.
Yeah, space vampires. So she comes to this town to write her book. She encounters this mechanic and 2 guys just kind of what are they, like rugby? Like, are they playing American
They're just
football?
kind of bums. Yeah.
No, you know what they're doing?
What are they doing?
They're unemployed.
They're trying to. They keep throwing a knife and they're trying to pick it up without falling over, but they're not allowed to move their back leg.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Oh, the actual game they're playing. Yeah.
God knows
I have no recollection of that.
But...
So yeah. Anyway, she then we see she's got a gun, which
that's a weird.
Which she doesn't use. She doesn't use it, does she?
Yeah,
kind of.
She doesn't kill anyone with it.
Yeah, she just kind of uses it to sound to make.
No, she threatens the guy later on. There's later on in the scene when she picks up Johnny before taking him to the bathtub.
Yeah.
And there's a point in it when he's justifying the rape, saying that it was her fault. He says, "You came to my gas station walking up and down with your legs."
Yeah.
And stuff like.
With the worst ADR I've ever heard in my life.
All of the ADR in this film sounds like it was recorded in somebody's wet room.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's and especially the guy who plays, is it Matthew, the kind of the nerdy one?
Simple Jack.
And he keeps humming to himself, and he's humming and he's mumbling. He's so loud on top of the mix. It's weird. Anyway.
Yeah, that Matthew has that. What do they call it on TV tropes? ambiguous disorder.
Yeah, he
suffers from. Yeah,
but he's dressed like a typical nerd, like a high school nerd kind of guy, isn't he? Glasses and slick back hair and kind of like floppy, slick back hair. But anyway, he's like a delivery man, or he works in a grocer's, doesn't he? And he's kind of
he does Uber Eats, apparently.
and he's befriended these three guys, the mechanic and his two friends, and he goes back to say that he's met this girl and he likes her and stuff, and then what happens then? She's like just enjoying.
She takes
she's writing and enjoying her time, like
takes a swim in the lake.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to say, she gets naked within the first 5 minutes. She just takes.
Yeah, I checked the time code on that.
And you're like, that didn't take too long, did it?
There's an implication that she's being watched at that point.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's meant to be that Matthew character is meant to be watching her.
Yeah, because he says, he goes back to those guys and he's like, I saw her tits, and I didn't remember any.
And you're like, when?
Yeah, so I guess, that is the implication.
I'm not saying the acting's subtle from any of these characters in this film, but he was so cartoonish. It was really bizarre, like how
it's really offensive.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, what's going on here? What is this? Anyway. Do you know what he reminded me of? He reminded me, in Clerks, when Walt Flanagan plays the guy who's offended by the porno mag. He reminded me of that.
I don't remember that.
Showing nasty images in front of customers.
In front of the customers? You both should be fired.
Yeah. Yeah, and then basically the two of the others, like, they're on a speedboat, aren't they? And they're kind of like taunting her almost, kind of like racing around her, kind of like just creating
kind
a ruckus.
Being annoying.
Yeah, so she
like
can't
two
ride.
kids on a quad bike riding around the estate.
Yeah. And then later on, she decides to go out on a boat, and then they come again on the speedboat and like basically drag her away, and then that's when things escalate.
Yeah, so the whole idea is like Matthew is a virgin, and they're basically capturing her for him to have his way with. And with his undiagnosed disorder, he's very hesitant to do it. So they think, well, if you're not going, I'll go.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody has a turn. And well, not initially. First, it's just Johnny, the ringleader. They knock her around a bit.
He looks very familiar. Like, I've seen him in other films, but I don't think I have. He's just
that kind of generic 70s sleazebag type guy, I think. After that they let her go, and it seems to me like they were implying she was kind of lost in the woods. Like, she walks into the water and she's having to move logs and get through all the vegetation and everything, and then she's back on land, and she comes into a clearing and the guys are already waiting there. Yeah,
with the harmonica. That's kind of a deliverance kind of moment, isn't it, I guess?
Absolutely. And they're kind of hunting her at that point and playing games at that point. Yeah, there's an escalation through the 3 scenes, definitely.
I feel so bad for Camille though in this whole portion of the film. Like, she's naked, going through dirty water, climbing over these logs. It's like, it must have been torture to film this. Honestly, like, I don't know. It makes you wonder why some actors take on these like roles. To be honest, like, I don't know.
Well, they see
this was at all pleasant.
Well, from the commentary, it's basically like any other low-budget production where there's not enough equipment. The reason the sound is bad is because apparently the sound recorder they had was like from the 50s. So they're constantly battling with all the same elements that every other low-budget production has.
I don't think it's shot necessarily bad. Like, it's quite competently shot, and it's got some interesting bits going on here and there. Like,
Ebert really made a point about it being so amateurishly made and terribly put together, but it looks all right.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad.
The sound is really the only thing that lets it down.
For like a video nasty film, it's it's not too dark that you can't see anything. In fact, I don't think anything happens at night. Really, it's all pretty much in the daylight, which probably makes it even worse that all this horror happens in broad daylight.
That's true.
So she escapes. Well, she's let go after that and gets home and kind of collapses, and she slowly crawls across the room to the phone, and she just manages to dial for help, and the phone is suddenly kicked out of the way, and that's the jump scare I was referring to.
Yeah.
That shit me up.
Yeah.
And then the ordeal begins again.
I kind of expected him to be in the house, to be honest, but it still made me jump. But
I for some reason I thought it was too. I thought she got away and then it happened again. I wasn't expecting the third one.
No, I wasn't. No, I was just like, again, really? Like, we've got there. I know it's horrific, and then the third one is worse. I don't like. It's just,
Yes.
I after this I paused the film. I have to say, like, I went for a breather.
Yeah. So this Matthew character is just because he's. At first, he's like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. They kind of force him in the first one to hold her down and stuff like that. But then this time he gets into it, and you're thinking, anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, and then I don't know. Does the other one rape her or not? I can't even.
I mean, he definitely assaults her. He beats her up, and I think they cut around it, but I think there was some shenanigans with that wine bottle.
Yes,
bottle.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that crossed my mind. But then they go to escape on their boat, but they tell Matthew he has to kill her and stab her through the chest, which he claims he does, but obviously he
dips the knife in blood and tells them he has. Yeah, which is a weird bit. It's a weird bit about the kind of abuse of like someone who's being portrayed as mentally ill as well.
Yeah,
like, there's no real reason to send him to go do it when you know he's inept. Apart from they have control over him as well.
Well, they're just pricks, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they make a lot of the criticism was about how you're invited to identify with these guys, and that's what's causing it to be so titillating to the viewer. But it's clear from the very first scene, even in the non-sexual context, these guys are massive arseholes, and you don't want to be involved with them in any way.
Yeah.
No. The film doesn't even put you in their heads. The film isn't doing that. Like, it isn't asking you to relate to them at all. Like, it isn't. Like, that's the defense of it, totally. It is just portrayed as these people are, horrible, and they deserve everything that's going to come to them. That's the whole point of this.
But I'll say at the same point, you don't know much about the character of Jennifer at all, really, other than she's from New York and she's trying to write a book. That's it. Like, she's not given much of a character. You don't really know much about her, really, at all.
There's a little bit of it, like when she's writing, they do a bit of voiceover about the kind of thing she is writing.
Well, I guess it's meant to be quite autobiographical, what she's writing, I think.
Yeah.
But
I do like after they attack her, one of the things they do is tear up her manuscript. Like they berate her and tear up her manuscript. And one of the first things you get after they all leave, and when she goes through this 2-week recovery, is that she's sellotaping her manuscript back together.
It's almost like she's putting her life back together at that point.
I thought that was quite good, actually. I thought that was good visual metaphor for what they're doing with that bit. And at this point, she kind of dresses herself in full black. She's like a proper Avenger.
Yeah.
And she goes to the church and asks for forgiveness for what she's about to do. But there is a question about, at no point does she try and call the cops after that first bit. There's no she doesn't seek justice at any point, does she?
I think that was part of the idea, because do you know the full story behind the incident that inspired it?
I know the director met someone who was raped, and that kind of inspired.
Yeah, he was walking. I think it was through Central Park, or it was a park in New York, and this naked woman emerges from the bushes
in front of the director.
Yeah, and his family, I think, and she tells them that she's been raped. So they
just wait there 1 second when I get my notes out.
They take her to the police. To inform them so that they can hopefully go out and look for these guys. But instead, the cop is so disinterested, and he basically just goes through the admin and the paperwork of it, and the girl's got a broken jaw.
What the fuck?
Yeah, the cop is like, "What's your name? Speak up, I can't hear you. Can you spell that?"
God.
And yeah, basically the director had to yell at the cop to say, "Fuck your paperwork, get this girl to a hospital."
So you think from this film he was coming at it from a good? He was thinking he was coming at it from a good point of view then.
Yeah, I think his intentions were pure.
Right.
Listening, his commentary is very interesting, but it's also really weird because I get the feeling he wrote it, like he scripted it,
that's odd.
and like timed it out to the film.
Oh,
And he's Israeli, so he's got this. But he sounds more French for some reason. So he's got this weird accent, and it turns into this weird Herzogian kind of narration over the film.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a very weird way to watch it, but he's a very interesting guy, and yeah. So I think he avoided the cops for that reason. I think he just left it entirely to the woman to seek her own
There's not
vengeance.
even like a cop station. Is that what they're called?
cop,
Police station.
cop shop.
A cop shop in town. You never see you never see a car go past. Like sirens or anything in it. There's no idea that there is anyone else she can turn to. I don't think at any point.
Yeah, it's basically a supermarket and a gas station, isn't it? That's the entirety of that town.
And then basically, there's a weird scene here that I really took against this part of the film for some reason. But she's watching them all, and she sees that he's got a wife and kids, and stuff like that. And I thought it was so odd they introduced him as a family man at this point.
What would you prefer it if they were to introduce that element? It was in earlier in the film or something, or you just think the whole point of that was just odd anyway?
As you say, you just learn so little about the characters. It was odd that there suddenly was like characterization.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it was.
There's only one other woman. Well, there's the wife in it, and there's another woman. Because they go to like a coffee shop, don't they? And they're all asking Matthew for some reason on the news, like
right.
why they don't know what's going on in this small town. It appears like there's 5 people in this town, and they can't figure out like. So basically, they're trying to find out if there's any news on a dead. If Jennifer's been found dead, because obviously Matthew's supposed to have killed her. They're confused
why she hasn't been found dead, and Matthew then admits that he never killed her.
Yeah.
And that's when they beat him up. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
But then she basically asks for groceries to her house, and then Matthew at work is told he's got to deliver groceries, and he has should I go, shouldn't I go, should I go, and then takes like a cheese knife.
He had a hell of a knife with him.
I know.
Yeah, and he puts it down his pants as well. Like that, you're taking a risk there, buddy.
On a bike as well.
Yeah, especially with your undiagnosed condition.
But yeah, and then at this point, it's very weird. She's like a siren.
Yeah,
like luring
all in
him.
white.
She's almost like she's like a kind of, I don't know, almost like she's a supernatural like being luring him to like the river.
Well, she is in the lake, so she is kind of like one of those like like a siren that kind of
and she seduces him. They start having sex, and midway through, she hangs him. Basically.
Well, I wouldn't say midway through. She does say he came later on.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
God.
So
he couldn't come during the initial rape, and then later on, she's confessing to Johnny when he remarks that Matthew's been missing. He's like, "Oh yeah, I killed him. I let him have his way, and you know what? He came."
God.
She's pretty strong though to pull him up though on that rope.
Yeah.
It was very visceral hanging.
Yeah.
It was like, I
like the shot of his legs dangling. To be fair, I thought that looked quite good.
Yeah. It's all. I know this film's all about the cathartic release of like finally like they've got what they deserved, but I didn't feel that much catharsis.
No.
So it's like maybe other people would, but I was just like, this somehow it's not got worse. Definitely hasn't got worse, but it wasn't like giving me what I wanted, I guess.
Yeah. Then the next one is she goes to the mechanic guy Johnny, who's with his family. And she lures him into a car, doesn't she? Is that with the gun?
She makes eyes at him.
That's
to
it.
Get him into the car first, and then she pulls the gun
out. Yeah. And then they have a bath together.
Well, it's kind of good. I kind of like it in the fact that she's clearly. I think she looks like she's going to shoot him, and she was going to shoot him. But when he started justifying everything and saying it was her fault, she decides this isn't good enough.
Yeah, you need to be fucked up even.
Yeah, she like lowers the gun and takes him back to her house where he runs him a nice hot bath because hot waters lets the blood flow more and stuff like that. Like, which I don't know if that's purposeful. I kind of like that she ramps it up herself. This violence isn't good enough for him. I'm really gonna show him like what I can do or something.
Yeah, I don't think she was reconsidering. Like, oh, maybe I was to blame.
Yeah.
I think she's definitely reacting to what he said.
But yeah, so she pulls. Well, I'm guessing she's doing stuff to him under the bubbles, and then pulls a knife out on him. And I thought she was going to shove it up his arse, but no. What's the line, Liam? Because I was chatting to Liam as I was watching it
down, yeah,
and I was like, hang on a minute, did she just chop his knob off? I was like,
that's so sweet, it's almost painful.
Like,
what,
I'm sorry.
He says,
I would feel a pinprick. So as soon as my knob's chopped off, I'd feel that straight away. I think.
It's so weird, and she's already gone out the bath, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" And then blood starts pooling everywhere, and
Oh God. Oh God.
yeah.
But you are right though. When she goes to sit on the chair and listen to the music, that would have been the perfect time to end the film. I think.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, definitely.
But,
they should have let the boat deaths on before this one.
I was saying to Liam though, the blood when she goes back to the bathroom, there's like the dead body and there's blood everywhere.
She's cleaning up. Yeah,
Yeah, it looks like junior school poster paint. Like 70s blood has got that very kind of like pinky, like matty kind of.
Yeah, it looks better than the Dawn of the Dead blood.
That's true.
Yeah.
All of Tom Savini's blood looked like that though.
Yeah, he didn't start. I think he was buying that formula from like a theatrical company or something, and then he started mixing his own, and that's when it actually started looking like blood.
See, Evil Dead's blood looked like blood, I thought, and then
Yeah, they were mixing that themselves as well.
yeah,
Coffee and carrot syrup, I believe.
yeah, it's all about the syrup.
Right.
Yeah.
Because wasn't it that their hair got so sticky that it just kind of started to like.
Yeah, I mean they had to. The floor got so sticky they had to take ashes out of the fire and sprinkle it all over the floor so they could walk around without sticking.
Sounds like a nightclub floor, like the Academy or snobs around here.
That's when, and then the next scene after this, because she locks him in the bathroom and he's screaming in the bathroom and bashing around, and then she's just sitting there listening to Porcini, I think it's, just rocking back and forth and stuff like that, and just in the background are these like screams that's being drowned out by the classical music. Kind of liked it. I kind of like that bit of the film. But then it cuts this really weird scene with the wife, and she's yelling at them for some reason.
You bums, get out of here, you bums. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
no offense, like they're arseholes, but they haven't done anything to her. They were just sitting down. Like
I think they were meant to be like just hangers on, like when
I'm guessing
she's
she
ready
knows
to get into the bath with Johnny. He's sat there complaining. When she's asking how about his friends, he's like, "I don't have any friends. These two guys, they just hang around like leeches. I hate them. I hate anybody who doesn't work." So these are just a couple of guys who were kind of like the sad. He might have been like the most popular guy in school, and these were his followers, and they just continued following him into adulthood or something like that.
I'm sorry, but it's not hard to shut people out of your life if you really want to. I'm sure he could have worked harder at getting rid of them. But anyway,
There's only 5 people in town.
that's true.
Yeah, but she was saying like he's a good husband, he's good father and husband, and he wouldn't just abandon me, kind of thing. And I was like, I don't believe that he's a good husband.
I was more concerned about how she was smoking that cigarette around by the gas pump.
Yeah, she was just like she had the cigarette in her fingers, and she was just molesting that fucking gas pump.
Yeah,
like with that hand. I was like, it's fine to smoke near it, I guess. Like
you can't even have your mobile phone around them these days. Cigarettes, so
don't put the cigarette on the gas pump.
Don't do that. Of all the things.
So
yeah, and so they go off. I don't know why. I guess they're trying to find him. And they find her, and she kind of does that classic final girl thing, I think, at this point. Like she robs both their kind of their instruments of power.
Yeah.
So she robs like his boat and robs the axe as well. So like she takes their strength from them and then torments them in the same way they were tormenting her, like by doing donuts around her in the lake and stuff. Then at one point,
when the one guy has to save his friend, why does he take his trousers off? It's like, what? Why was that necessary? I don't know.
I think that guy was the most offensive in the film, just for the suspenders.
Yeah.
just wearing like a pair of jeans with suspenders and no underpants on underneath.
Nothing else.
I was saying to Liam though, like you see the main actress like fully naked, full on a lot, whereas the men it was always very hidden. Like you saw
there
it,
was a few,
and there was a lot of
always cutting around the dick.
There was a lot of behind the bum where you see like the gross dangly balls and stuff like that. but yeah,
it wasn't equal.
It was definitely not equal.
I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the axe hit special effects because I quite found that quite funny. To me, it was quite clearly just a bit of pig.
Oh yeah. They just kind of hit. But
it wasn't too solid.
It was the propeller one. I swear he was about 4 foot away from that propeller.
I mean, he was on it when it started, and he started screaming, but it seemed like there was a delay in the blood. And it didn't start pumping until he got like 4 feet from it.
Well, we do know there's a delay in people realizing they're hurt in this film, and
that's just the way physics works.
Yeah. It's like when Liam tried to test inertia on a bus once.
That was good. I don't know. I can't remember how that argument existed. But yeah. I jumped up on the top floor on the bus.
He wants to see if he'd land in the same position or he would...
Oh yeah, that was it. I might not be able to remember most of what
I
happened.
think you smashed your face up quite bad.
I did. I smashed my head into a pole and then like properly had a blackout and concussion.
Anyway.
And I believe we're on our way to drink as well. That's the worst.
Anyway, yeah, so she kills them and then just rides off, and then the credits roll, and that's it. It just ends.
She has a bit of a smile on her face.
She does have a bit of a smile.
She's riding off. But then it just ends. End.
Finn.
I mean, thoughts?
I think talking about it then, it sounds like I enjoyed it more than I did, but I really didn't get anything out of this film. I thought it was like halfway through, I was. Well, to be honest, during the rape, when she's being raped on the rocks, I was like, I could have just turned it off then, and I was like, I'm done with this. Yeah. But I thought it picked up a little bit when she takes a revenge, but even then, I still found it a bit perfunctory and a bit boring. I mean, there was, like I said, like it was funny, like when she cuts off his knob and there's a bit of a delay and stuff. But like other than that, like I don't know. Yeah, not for me.
I would hesitate to say I enjoyed it, but I do think it had merit to it. Like I know quite a lot about the video nasties, but I haven't seen this film. It's not really like rip scenes aren't really something I'm drawn towards. No. So it wasn't really high on my watch list, just out of curiosity. But I'm glad I saw it because it's distinctly not what everybody made it out to be.
It definitely doesn't glorify rape. That's for sure. Yeah, I just found it quite horrific to watch. It's like I was saying to Liam as well. Like I was watching The Human Centipede, the first one. I thought it was a silly film or whatever, and then I watched the second one. But the moment they introduced a woman into the mix in the Centipede, I was like, nah, that's my limit. And I think this film was like, no, it crossed my limits on kind of what I...
It definitely crossed my limit, that I can put up with. I definitely felt that, actually. But, like, as James was saying, it isn't what the film was sold as. And I think that's a good... When you talk about the video nasties kind of legislation and what happened to people and people are fined under it, it was from like false pretenses from people who hadn't watched the films, who were basing it on bad scientific evidence as well. There's a really good bit in that documentary you were saying when they're talking to the guy who was responsible for the act. And he says that scientific research, that's it, scientific research has taken place that shows these films not only affect young people, but also, I believe, dogs as well.
What?
And this moral panic is something I think we need to remember. I think that happens, and it happens really easily.
They just transplant the same arguments onto the new topic of the day, like you say, social media, video games. It's all the same shit, just being regurgitated. It used to be books, used to be radio,
comic
thing,
books,
big
thing.
Yeah, because there was the what was the comic book one? Shit.
The Comics Something Act. Yeah,
Comics Code,
I'm trying to remember what the name the guy who did he did a book though, didn't he?
Destruction of the Innocent.
That was it.
Yeah. And we'll get to it when we cover the I guess 30s films. But the whole motion picture act as well about list of laws what people could do in film was a big thing at some point. You know, you can't kiss for over 9 seconds or whatever they were and stuff like that to keep people decent and stuff. And
Frederick Waltham, that was his name.
Okay.
Sorry.
And I think I'm glad in the fact that this is one of those. Well, it is pretty much, as we said, those 3 films that got originally prosecuted. This was one of them. It's one of the most controversial films ever made. It still has that controversy. Even this release that we watched isn't a full edit of it. It's
was it
still
not?
cut.
No, this is the full uncut version. This is the
is
American. Yeah, but the UK version that's out isn't as cut as it used to be. Like when it was first released after the Video Recordings Act in 2001, it had about 7 minutes cut out.
Oh wow.
After that, they started getting a bit more creative about it. So rather than cutting bits out, they kind of zoomed into different parts of the frame to remove the objectionable content or substituting shots for something less offensive. So there's less actual cutting of the film. So I think there's only actually about 2.5 minutes cut out of it at this point. But
Okay.
you know, it's like Cannibal Holocaust. Like, you know, the things that are in that are animal cruelty, which is not again not something I'm drawn towards. But if I'm going to watch it, I want to watch the uncut version.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Just just to see what it actually is. I'm not going to watch a censored version, no matter what it is.
I mean,
and it was interesting to do this in this, you know, the films we've been watching, because it is a big thing about 70s films. This does come in. It's a huge push. The VHS has changed the game, you know. And and I'm glad I kind of got to see what this was. I wouldn't defend it in the fact that, you know, I want people to watch this. I wouldn't suggest this to anyone. But I'm glad that I got to kind of make my mind up about that.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, you're still getting films cut today, though. Like, you know, like a lot of Takeshi Miike's films in the 2000s were cut, like Ichi the Killer and stuff. And then more recently, like, I'm never going to watch this film, and it's probably quite, I don't know, not connected to this, but like a Serbian film.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
And like,
really, the only things that get cut now are either because they want a lower rating, so
headbutts and things like that.
Yeah, they submitted Tenet, and that got a 15 for an advisory screening, so they went and cut some more out. And they came back and they got a 12. So that's mainly where the cuts are now. Nothing really is being imposed on a film except for sexual violence. I mean, that's really the only thing that gets cut now. So the remake of I Spit on Your Grave is also cut.
Oh, okay.
And I believe the third one is cut as well. And a Serbian film is another one that I would watch out of curiosity just to see it, but it's missing like 3 minutes out of the UK print, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested enough to import it.
I was going to say, another comparable film to this is like Irreversible as well, but it's obviously it's told in reverse, because it starts off with the revenge and then kind of goes backwards. And I think that was cut in the UK as well.
They are more lenient on subtitled and foreign films, though, because that was a whole thing as well during the Video Nasties. They were like, surely,
it's an art film.
Educated types in London, we can handle the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but what of the average miner in Sheffield? What if he was to see it?
There's so much of that going on in I didn't get into it for the 80s stuff, but there's so much prosecutions that happened up north compared to down south.
Oh, really?
And there's so much more about that kind of classist element of it that kind of feeds into these ideas and things that definitely exists.
So what would you guys give it out of 5 then?
I don't know.
It's kind of a hard film to rate that way.
I think I think I gave it 1 star on Letterboxd. And just the fact that I would never put this on again. No. I didn't really enjoy watching it. Well, I didn't enjoy watching it. I paused it halfway through. I was like, I need a break. I want to go I'll go watch Paddington or something and then come back to it. So yeah, like I can't. But I wouldn't write a review like that did exist at the time about it. I just couldn't
go all leave it on it.
No, not at all. But I just couldn't. I couldn't say that this is a good film or enjoyed it or anything. You know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a long time before I make any headway of watching it again.
Well,
I
you've
watched Cannibal
watched it
Holocaust
twice,
about-
really, haven't you? Really, with the
Yeah,
commentary.
but you know, the sound is really the worst part about it. So the commentary track is a
well, literally, the
tolerable way
ADR
to
is
watch
awful.
Her scream.
Yeah, I was saying the
thought would
scream
never
more than the
leave my
ADR.
brain.
Well, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, like-
the rape scene, the first one anyway, her audio is it sounds like it's from the actual location, whereas the guys sound like they're dubbed, and I don't know why that is, but
That's interesting. Can you imagine, as you say, this had such a small budget and shooting, it was just like, independent film shooting. Can you imagine coming across this in the lakes, like when they were shooting?
well, I
it?
can imagine
Or just
people seeing the
hearing
films I
that,
make. You've got people dressed as wizards and shit like that, and like you walk past, you're like, oh, there's someone being raped over there. It's being filmed.
Well, the director tells a story on the commentary of the church didn't charge them a fee for filming there, which was very helpful. So the director made a donation to the church, and then a few weeks later, he got a call from the pastor there saying, "Why didn't you tell me you were making a porn film? We're going to need all that footage back from you. We would withdraw consent."
Oh.
And apparently, a disgruntled production manager who they'd fired months before because he was an arrogant, incompetent prick, had travelled all the way down from New York to Connecticut where they were filming, and just badmouthed them to this priest.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that's really the only hassle they got. I've forgotten what the point of this conversation was now, why I brought it up, but that's the thing that happened.
I was going to say, actually, Ollie, you haven't said what you would think your.
I'd give it probably 1.5, just for some effort, because I feel bad giving a film anything lower than a 1, because knowing how hard it is to even make a film, like the fact that some effort's gone into it, but it's not a high mark. Do you know what I mean? Like I couldn't recommend it. Never watch it again. I'm kind of glad. I don't know if I'm glad I've watched it, but it's something I've ticked off that I think I should have. I don't know.
Yeah, which is the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah.
It's stuff that, like, if we're gonna talk about films or movies, or what the word you want to use is, you should watch them. You shouldn't just pass judgment without overseeing anything. And actually, the British feminist Judy Bindel, she was one of the people that spearheaded campaigns and pickets against this film, especially in Leeds. And
I think she might have been interviewed in that documentary that was in the Channel 4 one. I don't think she was in the Video Nasties one. But
okay.
Somebody hooked me up with the original Channel 4 show, so I've seen that in its entirety, and it did seem to, like, the first half of it is really following my dad around and what he's doing in the video shop, and the second half really seems to focus on, like, the feminist perspective of it and what they're objecting to and all that kind of thing.
And I think what's interesting about her reappraisal of the film is basically she said she hadn't seen it when it was released, and she's watched it again, and I've watched it now, and she says she was wrong, and she actually says she considers it a feminist film, which is kind of interesting.
There was definitely titillation within it, though. Yeah,
it's just I think the intentions are there for it. It's coming from a good place. It's just it's using a bazooka to kill a spider.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I think I read somewhere something like saying that this. Oh, I can't remember the quote, so let's not bother. But it's something about cockfighting. But it's like saying that this is a feminist film. It's like saying that you're on the cock side during cockfighting or something like that.
Yeah, it's beneficial to cocks because one of them is standing at the end.
Yeah, totally. But there is and I think one of the reasons it kind of flicked on my radar to put in as well is because there's quite a lot of women film critics who quite like this film. It has actually got a weirdly new reappraisal in the last few years. And I think it started with, there's a book in 1992 that's called Men, Women and Chainsaws. It's quite famous. I think it kind of started talking about the kind of, the last girl kind of elements of horror films.
Yeah, the director mentions that on the commentary. Like he considers that to be like the beginning of people looking at the film again.
That makes perfect sense. It does. And she reappraises it. She says kind of like she's begrudgingly, in I think the same way we've been a little bit begrudging about it, but says that it does have an element to it which it was overlooked at the time. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yeah, I think the director is right in that if it had come out with the Day of the Woman title, people might have looked at it differently, but the I Spit on Your Grave really does bring up certain imagery and assumptions about it, which predisposes people against it.
I think having that earlier scene though, where she gets naked and just goes for a swim, just kind of sets up the titillation nature of it. If it kind of didn't have that, maybe, and the rape scene was I don't know, shorter.
Yeah, if they kept
or
it in
less
the long shot rather than punching in for the close up as she's getting
just,
undressed. If you just saw her from across the river, I feel like that might have worked a bit better.
Yeah, just made it less titillating. I think would have kind of helped it for a start.
And as you say, there's a good portion of this film which she is full frontally naked.
I think for me, one of the reasons I know what filmmaking's like, and as does James, and as Liam, to be fair. Like Liam's been in the trenches as well. Literally, I probably have buried Liam.
Yeah, I think you have buried me.
Yeah, and I just know how horrible it would have been to make that film, and I think I'll probably put that on it as well, like just knowing how rough it would have been. Not that I've ever made it a film where someone gets raped or whatever, but yeah, I just know how rough it would be.
Anyway,
yeah.
So thanks, James. Thanks for coming to talk about this film.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for bringing it up.
So yeah, do you want to remind people of your socials and what's coming up with you film-wise and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, still working on Heads Are Popping. Hopefully we'll get that out early.
You sent me clips of the score. James actually got like a full score to do some of his tracks.
Awesome.
How many like members in the band?
22-piece string orchestra.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I got them to perform it. It's an orchestra in Budapest. You can basically book like a 25-minute session. They'll record 3 minutes of music. So yeah, I sent them a couple of tracks from the score, and now that's I splurged a bit and got some video shot for it as well. So I've cut together little music videos of the theme and one of the score cues in there, which is looking pretty nifty. Makes it look like we had some money. So yeah, that's hopefully early 2021 for that one. That's at headsarpopping.com.
Yeah, check it out. I watched the trailer just before coming to film this. Actually, film this? Yeah, that counts. And and it looks awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Actually, it looks really fun.
Thank you. Yeah. What's coming next then, Liam? What are we talking about next week?
Next week, I think, is actually going to be the Bill and Ted episode.
Oh, is that next week? Okay, cool.
We're not going to talk about the 70s. We'll do Bill and Ted. And
excellent.
There we go. And then after that, we're on to a last film of the 70s. Though we'll have some extras, but it's 1979's Time After Time.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully
I'll be able to listen to that one, because you keep making episodes that I want to listen to, but I haven't seen the film, so I'm not listening to it until I have seen it. I've been wanting to see Mickey and Nicky for years, and I haven't quite got around to it yet. Mikey and Nicky, sorry.
Mikey, I spent the whole episode saying Mickey and Nicky. Every second of that.
Can we have?
Episode.
Is this the right word? I can't say the word. Addendum on no more films with rapes for a while.
Yeah. God.
So yeah, we watched Perfect Blue, which I know that wasn't necessarily a rape scene, but like it's like
I have gone out and bought that, so I am intending to watch that soon and then listen to your episode about that.
Then,
wonderful film.
It is. And then what was it? The Straw Dogs. Was there anything else? I'm sure.
Straw Dogs. There's Wonder.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Wonder's a wonderful film though. So
it is wonderful.
The ones I've got downloaded: Mikey and Nicky, Fist of Fury, Straw Dogs, and Perfect Blue.
Sweet.
And there's a baby.
Yeah, there's a baby in here.
I think we've learnt something going into this, that we always wanted to see the films we're doing completely unseen, and I want to know as least as possible about them.
Yeah,
but I think I might have to do a bit of research going forward just to get some of the content.
But
you're okay with Time After Time. That's a brilliant film.
I have really enjoyed this conversation. I think it's been really good. So
yeah,
it has. So it's generated, a good podcast out of it. So.
And there was halfway through watching the film, it's like, I think I'm going to have to change the film we do. I don't think I can talk about this.
But you did, and we did it.
Right.
So anyway, on that note, thanks for listening. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on all the various platforms, whichever you listen on, be that Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. What's the other one? Stitcher. What's the other one? We're on Amazon Music now.
We are on Amazon Music now, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you can always reach out to us at Adjust Your Track on Twitter. That's a YR, not a your. And don't forget, if the picture's bad, always adjust your tracking.